Hey,
Welcome to Wilkie's World Wanderings.
hey, thanks for having me.
We're here with we're here with our guest as crit happens. Um, Andrew, the only thing that we've got to have you do is we got to have you give permission and for your video to come up because currently
So
on
I,
TikTok it
how do I do that? Hey, look
right
at that.
there,
Look at that.
right there. Now we're
That
seeing.
works.
Okay,
Let's see.
welcome. We're so glad to have you here,
Thank you.
Jay Grizzle. Thank you for joining. This is awesome. Okay, so we're gonna be discussing in Andrew's book, Kobolds, Mimics, and Orcs. Oh my! So I want to give you time to be able to talk about your book. So I'm gonna give you about a minute or two. You tell us about your book. Tell us what it's about, or tell us what the focus is.
Well, I got inspired when I went to my first convention last July in Denver at Lit
Mm-hmm.
RPG Con. Met a whole bunch of really cool authors. My career I've gotten more efficient at my career, so I had a lot more time to read, and I had spent the previous year reading as many books as I possibly could. And I happened to
Mm-hmm.
kind of settle on a lot of that lit RPG stuff. I think the first book I picked up after many years was Dungeon Crawler Carl, which kind of led me down this path. And then going to Lit
Mm-hmm.
RPG Con, met some really cool authors. Sour Patch was one of them, and Jay Krause, and I was like, wow, these
Mm-hmm.
guys are like totally normal people. They're not these godlike figures that I would always picture when I would read these books. And just through talking to them, it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. A lot of them said that when they first started writing, they just wrote for themselves and wrote for fun, and they were actually surprised that people really enjoyed reading what they were writing. And so that kind of inspired me, and I always had a lot of ideas knocking around in my head pretty much throughout my whole life. And one of the things that I'm always interested in is what happens in the dungeon once the adventurers are done with the dungeon and they've looted everything and they've killed the boss. What happens to these creatures? Are they reincarnated and wait for the next adventurer parties to come in? Do they live in a dorm? Do they eat in a cafeteria? Do they have families? Do they date each other? Kind of what do they do? So out of that
Mm-hmm.
came an idea of kind of looking at the daily lives of these dungeon monsters once the adventures are left, and kind of the hijinks they get up to, and like, where are these guys even from? Why would you volunteer to be a monster? Or are these guys slaves? Or do they get a paid a wage, and that kind of stuff? And are they treated well? And so this is
Mm-hmm.
basically a story of a couple of friends that live in the dungeon, a kobold, an orc, and a mimic, and kind of their daily lives. And all of a sudden, through some weird circumstances, they find this human baby, and then the story takes off from there. Um, they're abused by their overlord, and so they start to have rumblings of starting a dungeon union and maybe going on
Mm-hmm.
strike. And then you have the nefarious king and this evil wizard, and so you have all of this kind of coming together, kind of from a different perspective than what we usually get. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of inspired me to write the book. I initially was going to write a lit RPG book with all the stats and that kind of stuff, and then I figured out about 4 or 5 chapters into it that I was kind of like trying to squish the stats in there, and it works without the stats. So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
not including the lit RPG stuff. Because one of the advice I had gotten from another author is, if you don't need the lit RPG stuff, don't just squish it in there just to have it in there, because that people don't
It's
like that.
true.
So I was like, so after, and I'm a pantser, so I did outline kind of what I wanted to do, and then I just started writing the
Mm-hmm.
book, and it took me in a little bit of a different direction than I'd kind of thought, and so it ended up kind of being lit RPG adjacent, behind the scenes NPC dungeon point of view, kind of like I got inspiration from Drew Hayes's NPC book and series. I also really like the way Matt Denman writes the NPCs and kind of the other characters, and kind of gives them soul that you don't usually see in a lot of books. It's kind of like, hey, who are these people, and kind of tell me their story. And so that's what I ended up writing. I got about 95,000 words into it, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm only about halfway done with the first book. So I split that into two. So I've finished the first book. It's sitting on the editor's desk in the Cotswolds in the UK, and I'm nervously awaiting the return of the edits because I have no idea how to. I've never done it before, so this would be my first book, and so I got my first rough draft out of the way, and now I have to figure out how to do edits. And I was kind of hoping the editor would just make it a good book and then I could just sell it, but unfortunately he informs me that's not how it works. So I've got to actually do the heavy lifting myself, and I guess that's why my name will be on the book, I guess. So it is not a released book as of yet. I was hoping to release it around Lit RPG Con 2 in July. Everybody needs to go to that. It's a pretty cool thing. It'd be the best thing you do all year.
Yes, absolutely. You got to go. Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So moving on into that, now that we've had that chance to visit on that, so what was the inspiration behind kobolds, mimics, and orcs? Oh my!
Well, just kind of what I had talked about before. I was always interested in the minions and the Austin Powers with the little dudes that worked with Dr. Evil and kind of their lives. Yep. And I really enjoyed the book Starter Villain by John Scalzi. And really, it all comes from a love of reading books and seeing the things that I enjoy seeing in certain books that really spoke to me. And I always really liked humor. So An Unexpected Hero was one that I had read just about the time I started writing this. And I really enjoyed that book tremendously, just because how funny it was and how endearing the characters were. Obviously, the Dungeon Crawler Carl books influenced it. Even Kaiju and the Grinding, kind of the more kind of gritty, kind of darker side of that. So I tend to be more mixed humor with extreme violence, which is kind of hard to do. I think it's hard to kind of it's hard to kind of switch gears and switch in between those. But so I most of my characters are more grim, dark, and more gray characters who do some not so good things, and then you've got the bad guys who end up doing some not so bad things, and it's just interesting to see how it goes. So, but I'm also a big board gamer, as you could see behind me, and I've been in board games a lot longer than books, and just for all the different board games, and a lot of them are role playing games that we would play. I have a weekly board game group, and we've been together, I think, 5 years now, and we've done some epic games that lead to a lot of discussion of RPG stuff and how the dice really hates me, and they don't ever want me to roll for any kind of check because I am notoriously bad at rolling. So we have a guy in our group that's really good at it, so we just let him do it. But I think that's the inspiration, just kind of having ideas in my head. And I think a lot of people have these ideas and how you could improve movies or books or board games and that kind of stuff, but they never take the leap to write. And that was what was so like cathartic about Lit RPG Con, was that it kind of inspired, hey, I can do this. I think everybody can do it. So I just buckled down and I said, I'm going to write 5,000 words a week, and I ended up doing it and finished. And that was the hard part, supposedly.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, that's that's got to be one of the more difficult things as an author is being able to set the goal and hold to it. I
Right.
mean, so so this one will be a little bit of a spitball question, but
Sure.
what what is some of your motivation that pushed you to be able uh, to accomplish the goal that you wanted and to get? Like, were you able to each week reach your 5,000 word goal?
Well, I think probably the number one thing is set realistic goals. I think a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this. And then they set just ridiculously difficult tasks and they set themselves up to fail. And one of the things that I've learned in my 56 years
Hey, Robert.
is you have a bunch of stuff to do every day. And I find that if you just do one thing a day, after 20 days, you've done 20 things. When I used to have 20
Mm-hmm.
things to do and I wouldn't ever, because it seems so much to do that I would never accomplish it. So I set a realistic goal where I would write 5 days a week, 1,000 words. Um, and then I recruited or asked a lot of the friends that I made at Lit RPG Con. Reckwell has been a really good mentor for me, has been very helpful. Um,
He's the
the
best.
Lit RPG Authors Guild, which is a Facebook group, has been tremendously helpful. Sean Oswald they're very happy to help and give advice, and a lot of the same advice that I got from him and Doug Losey and several other authors is the big mistake most people make is they'll write a chapter and then try to edit it, and then they'll be in this
Mm-hmm.
endless loop of writing and editing and writing, and you never go anywhere. And they're like, just get your rough draft done. You might have a terrible day of
Mm-hmm.
writing and think this is the worst piece of that I've ever seen in my life, but just move on because you can always go back and you can always edit and you can always make it better, and and you never know where the story's going to take you. So I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
doing all this back editing is not really helpful, and I think a lot of people get stuck in that. So I use a lot of advice. People like Jason Willis was another guy that I'd met at
Mm-hmm.
RPG Con and was always very helpful,
Oh yeah.
and I was never shy to ask for advice about every part of writing books and editing and publishing. And then CJ Estrella, who you had on last week, he's about
Mm-hmm.
6 to 7 months ahead of me, and we're friends. He lives in Arkansas as well, and so we kind of use each other for sounding boards about what we're doing and kind of what the next steps that we want to take on our books are. Like, hey, I don't even know how you do ACX and get narrators and that kind of stuff. So we're kind of learning together, and but
Yeah.
that's I think my favorite part of Lit RPG genre and the group
Mm-hmm.
of authors in it is they're always there to help you and are always very
Mm-hmm.
kind, and sometimes they give you some harsh
Oh, absolutely.
feedback, which you kind of need, and that's part of being an author, but they're always very kind about it. So it's kind, harsh feedback, so to speak. So it makes it much easier, I think, in this welcoming environment to write when you've never written before anything. And I'm in the
It's
sciences, so
true.
I'm just not a writer at all. I've been I would have done much better in college if I was good at writing. And you wrote in those little blue books, and you had to write something about Japanese history, and I was just such a terrible writer. And I'm learning that it's like a muscle. You gotta train it, and you just keep
It's
training it
true.
every day, and don't skip leg day, and you'll do pretty good. So
Exactly.
I'm worried that editing is
And
leg
it's just
day, and I
doesn't.
may have to skip leg day. I'm not really sure.
Uh, it it takes time. I mean, even for me, like when I started doing writing, when I started going into it, it was not an easy prospect. It was not
Hmm.
an easy thing. Um, and it's all about being consistent. Hey CJ, thanks for joining us. I'm so sorry, Lumi. I saw your question, but we were right in the middle of a discussion, so. We do our best, Mr. Stover. We
Hey,
do our
Mr.
best.
Stover, what's going on, buddy?
So the other questions that I have, and I'm terrible at this. I understand the reason why a behind the scenes NPC story, because there's another author that has written something like that as well. I'm not going to promote him, but I will mention him. S.L. Rowland.
I love him. I love SL, man.
Steve is amazing. He wrote an NPC Kobold's old story, and it is absolutely amazing. He did not expect it to go as viral as it has.
Right.
But at the same time, it has brought him... Yes, Mr. Stouffer, exactly.
It's true.
But...
have you seen his feet? Ugh. No, sorry. That's terrible.
We try and keep his thong out of the discussion. And
Yeah,
I'm sure Steve would prefer that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
No, at the end of the day, like, he never expected to have it be that this story would be so intrigued and that people would enjoy it as much as they did. Well, because they enjoyed it as much as they did, and it went crazy over on TikTok. Thank you, TikTok fam, for blowing it up. Because it did, now he's taking that and he's going to do, instead of the novella that it was, he's actually going to turn it into a novel, and he's going to put another book out on that one. So it's very much this very good feeling of, I understand why you would want to write from an NPC's standpoint, because a lot of the time we don't get to see that. I
think that's what makes it. I think that's what makes it interesting, is that you're getting it from a different point of view that you don't get to see, so you can kind of look behind the curtain and really look at what motivates, because we all know what motivates the fighter and the tank and all that kind of stuff. What motivates everybody else in these worlds, and when the camera's not on these guys, what are they doing? Do they, are they just like, oh, I'm off camera, I'm not going to do anything? It's like, no, they've got lives, they've got families, they're, happiness and sorrow in their lives, and it's interesting to look at that point of view. I really like cozy fantasy stories, what Travis Baldree did with Legends of Lattes. I've really enjoyed those a lot, and I think that kind of scrapes that part of the story that you don't get to see. It's kind of like just the more, not mundane parts of their lives, but the regular parts of their lives, and how that's interesting as well, and watching them live. I mean, it's just, I don't know how else to put it. So I think that's what's so intriguing to people. And I know Reckwell wrote some cozy stuff as well. And I really am kind of drawn to that. Unfortunately, I'm also drawn to the violence. So I do cozy violence stories. Is that a new genre? I'm not sure what you call that.
There can be. There's absolutely a chance for cozy violence and story. You just got to do it in just the right way.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you've written about at least 3 characters. You told me that you've got to focus on a kobold, a mimic, and an orc. Now, mind you, you had me intrigued from the start, because I love kobolds. I've been a massive fan of kobolds since I started in this genre. Like, that is my thing. And if you're not a fan of mimics, there's something wrong with you. Like, there's something
Agreed.
so extremely dangerous about them,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time, oh yes, Mr. Stouffer, that's why I have Crit Happens on here. He wrote a book called Kobolds, Mimics, and Orcs, Oh My. It is not published yet, but he's really hoping to get it published before Lit RPG Con. We can hope.
Or just that. Yeah, for sure.
Um,
But yeah, I had to kind of do a deep dive and refresh myself about kobolds and kind of what their lore was and refresh my memory because usually they're just like dungeon fodder and you're like, oh, okay. And then I was like, let me look into kind of who they are and what their world is like. And so and I think that everybody loves a good mimic, from Boxy
absolutely.
to Mimic and Me. Just amazing stories, and you can kind of do whatever you want with them because they can kind of mimic everything. And the Mimic in my story is actually a smart mimic who, instead of eating people, he eats books, and he acquires the knowledge from these books. The problem is he's a terrible mimic, so when his main form is an overstuffed easy chair, but he's not good at it, so he ends up having these hairy feet, human feet, as part of the chair, and he's just not a very good mimic, but he's pretty smart. So he's kind of the brains behind the group, and he kind of helps MacGyver things because he's like, oh, let me think back to this old tome that I ate in the library back so long ago, and okay, that kind of helps. So I also like to subvert the reader's expectations. Where you think the story's going one way, you're like, wait a minute. Hey, is that Dennis? We love us some Dennis. He's the coolest.
We love us some Dennis. It's amazing, and when he's here with us.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something so intriguing about a creature that can kill you, but they have a heart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't completely understand how it is that we can love mimics as much as we do, but I absolutely love a mimic, and I love a kobold. And of all things, I think there's such a fascination amongst all readers with orcs. Goblins, orcs, all these monster creatures that are kind of misunderstood. And that yes, I am definitely fascination. I'm sorry, Mr. Stuffer.
I mean that takes me all the way back to the original Warcraft game that came out maybe before you were born, I'm not sure. But I played the old computer game. It was Warcraft, and it was humans against these little orcs. And that was when I was like, ooh, I kind of like playing because you got to the point in the game where you could play either side. And I always liked playing the orcs and getting my little trees and getting the gold and stuff like that. So I've always been fascinated with the orcs as well. There's such a huge number of different kinds of monsters that are in the world of fantasy that you have so much to choose from, and it's kind of like, who are your favorites? These are the ones that we see all the time, and then you find a couple of esoteric ones. You're like, I'm going to pull this out because I haven't seen anybody talking about a gibbering mouther for a long time. I don't know if you know what a gibbering mouther is.
I do, actually.
You do? Okay, that's awesome. So that's one of the fourth character that comes into this is a gibbering mouther that only speaks in non sequiturs. And he's
that makes me happy.
I've added a little. It's a little weird. So he's got the eyes, multiple mouths, but he also has multiple pigtails and pig booty holes as well. So he's kind of the comic relief, and he says very kind of strange things, but he has a weird background, so we don't know where he came from and kind of where what his origin story was. So that's my favorite character that I wrote in the book. And his name's Eric. I named him after my good friend who lives up in New York, who's a big Dungeon Crawler Carl fan, who actually got me into collecting Matt Denman books. And I was like, as a thank you, I'm going to make you into a gibbering mouther with a lot of pig booty holes. So he was quite happy with that.
I can appreciate that. Mr. Stouffer, that is absolutely beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So on that same topic, obviously you're writing this and you're going through this whole process. Hi, Paula. Thank you for joining. Hi, Travis. So do you already have a plan? And with this, is this one of those things that you're going to be doing multiple books in this series?
Yeah, so I initially was going to do a trilogy, and now it turned into a quadrology. Because I split the first book, it may get even bigger because I may have to split the other books. But I pretty much fleshed out the characters for the most part and figured out exactly how the book was going to end. I think a lot of authors do that. We have the beginning and the end, and the middle is kind of this amorphous blob. But I already have kind of, I've mapped out all the arcs, and I was fortunate enough to find a good spot in the halfway between book one that it made a logical split. So it finished several arcs, but it still kind of left the reader on a bit of a cliffhanger because they kind of, not everything is resolved. And then in book two, they go through and they resolve a lot of the arcs, and they, in their solution to getting out from under this magical badness, they release even worse things. And so book three is kind of a continuation of that, where they're having to now kind of correct what they've done. And then in book four, they've inadvertently let an even bigger bad guy out. And I know that's a pretty common thing in series or whatever, but it was fairly logical in kind of how I've written everything. So at this point, it's going to be a quadrology. I'm about 30,000 words into book two, as I'm waiting for my editor to rip my first book apart. And Travis Dean, I want to give a shout out to him. He's actually an author as well, who is my editor, and he does editing for Luke Chmielenko. I don't know if I said that correct.
Oh, yes.
So he edits for him and several other like legit authors, and he's busy himself. You check out his stuff on Amazon. He's written about, he has a series about griffins, and then he's got a couple of series that are cooking right now. So I don't know how he writes and edits, and he has a family and does all that stuff all together. The good news is that he will be at Lit RPG Con in July, and everybody can say hello to him and ask him about his books. He's a really good dude. And he's been very kind. He's not only doing the line edit, but he's doing a developmental edit for me at the same time, which I figure is probably pretty good.
Okay.
And he's the one who said, no, I can't make your book good. You have to do that. So I was like, okay, I could probably do that.
It's true. And I can appreciate that. So obviously that leads into the question of that we all generally ask as a podcaster: pantser or plotter?
Yeah, I'm definitely. I mean, I don't. So do pantsers outline at all? Because I had an outline, but I didn't have like a chapter outline. I had an idea of what the story was going to look like, and then I pantsed it.
So we consider that to be that you're a plantser.
Okay, a plantser.
That you have, that you have a little bit of plotting, but that you pantsed it along the way, and that's a great thing. Like, those are some of our favorite authors,
right?
Is that they let the characters guide them where they want to be, and we also understand that some of these characters, like, I know that my characters in my book don't always do exactly what I want them to do.
Exactly.
drives me crazy.
Yeah, yeah, because my story went in almost a completely different direction that I had really wanted, and it was almost like it was writing itself, and it went from 4 main characters to then like 6. It goes up to like 7 characters that kind of get into this found family, and once they progress with the story, it's now almost like a small dirty dozen now that they're loose out into the world, and I was like, where do these I didn't play in these characters at all, and they just showed up, and and a couple of characters started as little minor characters, and now one of them, who's another friend of mine, Nathan, his character turned into like one of the main characters now, and he was just going to be a little side character, and he was like, let me out, I need to be part of the story, and I was like, okay. Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, continuing on characterization, you've already told us about at least 4 of your characters. Do you have plans for another monster character that might intrigue me? Because, mind you, I promise you, as soon as your book comes out, I will be one of the first to pick it up as soon as possible. So just know, I'm going to be there. But I love the idea of seeing perspectives from different NPCs, because there's something very unique about being able to see the story from their side of it, and that really intrigues me.
So So the basic plot is, when at first you just see them in present day, and as the story progresses, it reveals their pasts and kind of how they ended up where they are. And I do that in a couple of ways, where I have I have these prologues, but then I make fun. So I'll have like a faux log and a bro log and a mop and glow log, which are these kind of little in-between chapters that kind of look back at their lives and give you a little idea to set in motion kind of the track or the trajectory of how they ended up coming where they are. And I have a werebear that is a little bit in the first book, but he's much more involved in the second book, who has narcolepsy. So all he does all the time is sleep. But there's a reason for it, and you get through and you see through his past. So he was kind of fun to write. So he's your somnolent werebear, and he's kind of this curmudgeon-y guy that's kind of pulled along, and he's not really happy about being pulled along, but he has a big part in kind of figuring out everything that's happening and how he kind of fits in the end. I've always been a big fan of like the Ocean's 11, those kind of books where you have about 1,000 different pieces, and then they kind of all come together in the end and fit together pretty cohesively. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to create here. Hopefully I don't have too many moving parts, so my wife is not a huge reader, but she says, I'll read your book. And she read the first part. She goes, I'm confused. There's so many characters. I have no idea who anybody is. And I was like, okay. But she's also not an RPG person and not a Dungeons and Dragons person, so she doesn't know what kobolds and all that kind of stuff is. So she doesn't even have the background to really know what an orc is and that kind of thing. So she's very supportive, and I understand that. And I told her she didn't have to like read the didn't have to read the book. That's perfectly fine by me. But she was. Sorry, my son just walked in the room. He's looking for we have a telescope that we're pulling out, and he's trying to learn how to use it.
Panda cakes.
But she was nice enough to embroider a couple of characters. So she's really good at doing those little embroidery things, and she's embroidered a couple of my characters thus far, kind of given them some life, so to speak, and actually made me cry. I was like, oh, thank you. I had no. She stays up late doing her crafts, and woke up one morning, and there was the gibbering mouther looking at me, and I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly what Eric looks like. So
That's so cool.
and I at some point I do hope to do what S.L. Rowland has done and do little plushies of these characters, especially the Gibbering Mouther, because I think that would be a big seller. Because Gibbering Mouthers are just the coolest character like ever, and he's purple too, so that's a good color. And then you can.
It's true.
I would like to do it where you can hit a little button and it makes him say his little weird non sequiturs, but I think that's probably pretty expensive, so I'm not 100% sure.
Possibly. Give it time. It took a while for Steve to get to that point. Eventually, you will too.
Yeah.
Just gotta make sure that you're seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, moving on a little bit like that, we know that there is a lot of support here in Let RPG. Like you've seen it, I've seen it. What has it been like for you in this community? I mean, obviously, not a lot of people know that you're an author and are about to release a book. But how has the support been from fans and from other authors?
Why people that I barely know would take a time out of their day to explain things to me, send private messages. Grant Eli is another guy that's actually from Arkansas. He's doing his first book, and he's like, "Hey man, throw me out that rough draft, and I'll do some edits on it. And I'll help you with it." And everybody has been like super helpful, and it's not. It's interesting. I collect lit RPG books. I have a ton. I collect Matt Denman stuff. I also collect Red Rising, and it's interesting the differences between the groups of people that I interact with. The DCC crowd is super cool, very supportive, very nice. The Red Rising crowd, I'm not smashing them or anything, but I've gotten a lot of very negative feedback when I post certain things. And one of the things that I have kind of adopted myself as is creating the most complete Matt Denman bibliography there is. Because when I started collecting, there really wasn't a lot of information all in one place about the different editions and the different covers and, you know, which ones are valuable and which ones are not. So I basically, through a little collectors group, there's about 4 or 5 of us in the group, we've kind of, number one, we've collected a lot of them. And number two, we've kind of created this list of basically every book. And even though he's only written, we're like 8, 9, like maybe 11 or 12 books, I think at this point there's 86 variants with all of his books. And a lot of people don't know that they exist. And I did the same thing. So Red Rising, there's only 6 books at this point. There'll be a 7th one coming soon. So I did the same thing. I did a bibliography for them, and there's actually about 90 variants for that book. And of course, I'm talking, you know, there's probably 15 variants of just the first book. And I did a bibliography, and I posted them on Reddit. Of course, Reddit can be kind of the Wild West. And I posted one, the Denman one on the DCC group and the Red Rising one on a Red Rising group, and I got completely different reactions from people. People in Red Rising were very angry that anybody would buy more than one copy of a book, and only morons would buy expensive books and stuff like that. Versus the Denman crew are like, "This is amazing! I love this, and I want to get this book too." And that kind of thing. And I'm not crapping on Red Rising at all. I love those books. Those are some of my favorite books. But it's just interesting how the Denman ecosystem is so welcoming and so nice and so supportive.
Oh, thank you.
Unless it comes to those keychains that just came out, then you're getting in fighting words. I don't know why people are upset about those, but I mean, there's always going to be some yucks to yums and that kind of stuff.
It's true.
But it's but I one of the perspectives I want to bring is from a collector, and not
Mm-hmm.
so obviously I'm a fan of the books first and foremost. I love reading and try to read as much as I can. But also I want to come from the point of view of a collector that knows the ecosystem and what books are valuable and what books aren't. And of course, I love to. My wife is making a face at me, trying to make me laugh.
Oh,
Um,
thank you, Paula.
and,
That's
and
awesome.
people are thinking that I flex some of the books, but that's not my purpose to flex. It's my purpose is to inform people, because there are people that have some very valuable books and they have no clue that they're worth anything, and they're just
It's
like, oh,
true.
is this? And so I probably about once a week I have somebody that'll message me on on Facebook and say, hey, I've got this book. Is this worth anything? And there just isn't a resource for that. So part of my collectors group with Nathan, Eric, Mitch, and Chad is that we're going to do a fan-based website
Oh,
that
really?
is going to, number one,
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
it's going to assign crawler numbers, which is just kind of a fun thing. It's not official. But I want to make it kind of a one-stop place for information on Lit RPG and Matt Denman stuff. So we're going to
Yeah.
have the bibliography, which will be searchable on the website. So it'll go up and give examples of each book, each cover, what to look for, how you know it's valuable,
Mm-hmm.
where to buy this stuff. And I at this point I haven't seen a lot of fake signatures for Matt Denman yet. Because that's a big thing in the Stephen King realm. There's tons of fake signatures and stuff.
Yes,
And
I believe that.
somebody asked me the other day, "Is this a fake signature?" And I'm like, I don't think so.
I
I don't think we're
don't
at that
think so.
popularity that they're faking his signature yet. But I'm sure someday we'll be there. But also on the website, we're
Oh,
gonna
I'm
have
sure.
a list of all the Lit RPG podcasts where
Mm-hmm.
you could put your stuff and it'll just all be on one page, so what stuff's coming up. We want to have a searchable
Mm-hmm.
database of Lit RPG releases, because that's one of the things that you get these huge lists. And it's like I only
Mm-hmm.
like progression stuff, so I just want to only look at progression. But you got to look through this list of 1,000 books. We're going to have a database
I
where you
can
could just put
appreciate
in
that.
progression or isekai or Xantia or any of that kind of stuff, and to give you a basic
Yeah.
idea. And it kind of, because it's the good news is Lit RPG is getting huge. The bad news is Lit RPG
Mm-hmm.
is getting huge, and it's harder to kind of keep
Yeah.
track of everything.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so
See,
information is power, and that's kind of what we want to do, is give information to everybody.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I've said this before. There are those that are part of the groups that I am, and they've heard this multiple times. Lit RPG has been a place for me that was so welcoming. Like, I've been in multiple different fantasy genres and finding people and connecting and whatever else. But Lit RPG, the people here, they feel like a family. We feel we're a wacky, crazy,
I feel that, yeah.
absolutely nuts family,
Hmm.
but we're still a family because we're here to support one another. This
Yeah.
genre, like I said, is still growing, and it's growing in big waves, but at the same time, we're still small enough that we go and see each other and we go and
Hmm.
support each other, and we're always
Yeah.
there for one another, even when we're having a hard time, even when we're dealing with something. We're
Yeah.
all there because in beginning this genre, and mind you, this isn't the beginning of this, because Lit RPG has been going on for a long time. It's been going on far longer or outside the U.S. than it ever or has within. But at the same time, there's very much the sense that we have to stick together. If we
Hmm.
don't, then this genre is just gonna fade into the background, and that
Right.
can't happen.
Right.
Like,
And I think that was what
if we
was the
want to.
amazing part about Lit RPG Con, is that it was small enough to feel intimate. And because I think there was
Mm-hmm.
only about 1,200 people there, and of which half were like
Yeah.
authors and narrators
Oh yeah.
and sound editors and stuff, but it felt like a family. And that was the first convention I'd
Mm-hmm.
ever been to. Um, and I just fell in love with it, and I think that's what has inspired me to do all of this stuff. And I'm sure everybody watching knows what Lit RPG Con is. If you don't, you need to look it up, because I still
Yes.
run into people. They're like, "What's
Yes, if you
that? I've
haven't
never
looked
heard
it
of
up,
it." And it
you've
was like,
got to.
dude,
We
do
want to see
yourself
all
a
of you there.
favor. If you want to get FaceTime with authors who are the most humble, nice, approachable, wonderful people,
It's true.
go to Denver July 10th, 11th, and 12th. And it will be the highlight of your year. It really will be.
It
And
really will.
I'm going to take a little. The Lit RPG Loot Crew is something that we created where we walk around Lit RPG Con with a big D20 die about this big, and anybody can roll the dice, and depending on what you roll, you could get loot. And a lot of them are just custom made convention ribbons, stickers, pins, or whatever. But if you roll a 20, you get a special limited edition convention ribbon, and you get to roll again. And depending on what you roll, you can get a first edition out of print Dungeon Crawler Carl Luciano Flatus cover book. We've got 2 of those. We've got several Doug Losey has given books. We're in the process of getting books from a lot of different authors.
Hi, Razor Smith.
We have a lot of limited edition things that we're giving away. A lot of really cool stuff. That you don't want to pass up, and it's free. It doesn't. Anybody can roll. It depends on how because I think we already have about 200 items. We'll probably end up with about 1,000 items by that. So everybody will get something, and we've got some really cool stuff. And I think we have about 25 people now that are on the Lit RPG Loot Crew. Just look for this shirt.
Oh, that's
they'll be there.
That's
Geneva and Emily said that they'll do little prompts for people and let them know where we'll be at the convention. The convention's not huge, although it's going to be twice as big floor wise. I think we have 2 floors this year instead of just 1, and so it won't be very difficult to find us. But, because one of the coolest things that I did last year is I brought a bunch of merchandise just for fun and handed them out to people waiting in sign lines. And you would have thought that I gave them my kidney, because they were just like, this is the coolest thing ever. and that's part of that, spreading the Lit RPG joy to people. And we're not a cult. We're not a cult.
No.
Not really.
Well,
maybe a little bit.
Well, we are. But I mean, that's Dungeon Crawler Carl. We're totally a cult, but that's a different story.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of bleeds into it, but yeah. And it's I love interact. So I have an introverted job. I sit in front of a computer all day. I'm actually a physician, but I'm a radiologist, so I read MRIs, and so I spend my day in front of a computer looking at 90 MRIs. And so I have a very introverted job, but I'm a huge extrovert. And so I don't get to extrovert much. My wife has an introverted job. She's a therapist. She does online therapy, but she's an introvert. So she's perfectly fine not leaving the house and doing stuff.
Yeah, that works.
So when I went to Lit RPG Con, I went nuts because I finally got to extrovert. And so I got about a year's worth of extroversion in one wonderful weekend. And now I think I'm going a day early and leaving a day late this year, so I could get now 5 or 6 days of extroversion with all my peeps and going to see Pop and all my favorite folks.
See, I'm the reverse. I am going one day early. I'll be there on that Thursday, so the 9th. But I am leaving on the 12th. I'm leaving on Sunday afternoon. Having to head home because work, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So moving into that question, so obviously you gotta first publish. Like that's the major point. But we know that this genre, a large portion of it tends to depend on audiobooks. We're all introverts and we love listening to books. So have you done your research, and have you
I have,
you
yeah.
want to have as your...
So CJ Estrella, who is a friend of mine who was on your podcast last week. He and I are good friends, and he's about 6 months ahead of me. So he released a book in like October, and so he and I have been kind of researching ACX and looking at different narrators, and I've kind of been there with him while he's been going through the process with his narrators, and his book is at the editor and it's almost done. And I thought maybe I would try and learn how to do narration myself, and so I set up a sound booth, and I got all of the bells and whistles and that kind of stuff. I figured out how to use Reaper, how to edit, what your noise levels will be, and then one thing I didn't count on is that I'm a terrible narrator. I tried it. I did several different takes, and I'm like, I wouldn't listen to this. So I'm going to leave it to the professionals, because what they do is very, very, very difficult, and I give them all the props.
It's incredible.
I'm kind of hoping to maybe get Daniel Wisniewski or maybe Justin to do my stuff. I might approach Jeff Hayes, but I have a feeling he's probably booked out till 2075. But there's so many. There's so many great narrators. Jessica Threet is somebody that I just adore. Andrea Parsonaux is amazing. Miss Sands as well. There's just so many, because that was the cool thing about Literary RPG Con, is that it's also narrators, and there's a ton of narrators that you can meet, and you're like, I know that voice. I know exactly who you are. And of course, Travis Baldry. And so there's so many choices, but I think it kind of comes down to the tone of what your story is. Some narrators would be better than others, and not that they're bad narrators, but it's just how are they going to fit the tone of your book. So like right now I'm listening to Reckwell's Stumbling Up, and I think the narrator she chose was perfect for the tone of the book, and their main character kind of being this little bit of a sad sack kind of dude, and I think it works beautifully. I'm just going to have to figure out, once I get the edits done, and kind of, I don't know if the tone is going to change a little bit, but I definitely want to find a heavy hitter when it comes to narrating, because that could make all the difference in the world. I read Project Hail Mary. I loved it. But that when I listened to the audiobook with Ray Porter, I mean, I fell in love with that book so many times. I actually listened to it twice last year, because he did such an amazing job, and I couldn't imagine anybody different narrating that book, because it was so amazingly good. And then obviously what Jeff Hayes and they have done with Dungeon Crawler Carl, that I think have really placed it in a different stratosphere. So I think it makes a huge difference in the audiences, because I think for the first time that audiobooks outsold ebooks or something, were out listened by ebooks. This was was the first year that ever happened, and it's such a huge ecosystem now. And I know it's not cheap either, so I'll have to kind of take a look and see kind of what it is, and I know the best people are probably booked out for quite a bit, and obviously I can't do anything about it now. Although I will say, I'm going to give a shout out to my man Luciano Fletas, who is the cover artist for the original Dungeon Crawler Carl series. He has been gracious enough to agree to do my cover. He and I are going to be working together in the end of May. And I Facebook messaged him one day thinking I'd never hear from him. He got back with me immediately, and I was fangirling all over him. And I said, hey, do you have any availability? I would absolutely love for you to do my cover. And he goes, absolutely. And I just love his work, and I love his stuff. And he's so iconic, and it makes me feel even more part of this community, because these guys are titans of the industry, and that you get to work with them and see them. And so I'm super excited. That the problem then comes in, which scene in my book do I want him to tackle? So I'm going to have to, I have a couple of friends who are in the process of reading the book, and hopefully I can get some input from them. It's like, because there's a couple of kind of iconic scenes in my book that would be beautiful on the cover, and of course I'm just like, listen, I just want you to do what you do, make this amazing cover, and I'll just bask in your glory of how good it's going to be. So
I can appreciate that.
Fingers crossed.
Yes,
We'll see.
hope.
So
Yes, we can hope. So I'm gonna put this out to the audience, and it's because no matter what, the reason why I do this is because I want our audience to be able to see the new authors, to be able to talk to them and ask them questions. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. But this is usually at the point where I do a, what are you reading? What are you currently working on? And where can we find you? Do you have events that you're going to coming up that we can find you at, where of course we got to get your signature? Because I mean, if I had known, Crit, that you were going to be an author, I would have had you signing my autograph book last year or without a hesitation.
Me too.
So...
But last year I had no clue I was going to be an author. I literally started about 2 weeks after Lit RPG Con, so I had absolutely no clue. What I'm trying to. Oh, I just started the Bobaverse book 2,
Okay.
physical read. So I do physical and I do Audible. So I'm doing the Bobaverse book 2. So last year I ended up reading like the first in all the iconic series, the first book. So I did like Bobaverse and Empire of Silence and Murderbot. I mean, you just basically cradle all the different series you could think of. And I'm actually, for my audiobooks, I'm really enjoying the full cast versions of the Harry Potter series. So I just finished the fourth one of those, and then I just started Reckwell's Stumbling Up yesterday, the day before. So I'm usually doing a physical and an audio at the same time, because I could do audio when I work. Don't tell the boss. But hey, I could do audio when I work, and that kind of stuff. I did take a little break writing because my wife and I went to Las Vegas. We go about twice a year because we enjoy the food and we're big UFC fans, and so we went to went to a couple of UFC events the last couple of weekends, and this is the first time, because of the time change, because it sprang forward or whatever, and then the time change coming back from the West Coast. That I had a hard time this last week getting up and getting stuff, so I kind of put writing off this last week because I've been so tired. Because I usually need a nap in the afternoons. I nap for about 20-30 minutes, but I have to have that nap, or I'm worthless to anybody. What was that? And so I am on TikTok. It's brand new to me. I've only been on about a week. I've done my intro video for myself about 9 times, and they're terrible. So all you TikTokers, namaste. That what you do is very, very hard. I've been studying Quilty's work, trying to see what Quilty does. And I think she calls herself a rabid squirrel. I don't know. So I'm going to try the rabid squirrel way of doing things. But so I'm in the learning phase of TikTok and watching the foxes and watching your stuff and trying to find as many creators in this. I have to give a shout out to Samantha Boyd, who is slaying it with her stuff.
Oh, Sam, so much of a genius.
Mr. Stouffer as well.
Amazing.
It does a really good job.
Absolutely.
All the folks doing the Prepotente stuff is really a lot of fun. I don't know if I have it in me to be a daily TikToker, because it is a lot of work.
It is.
And I don't. What you guys do is amazing, and I have to give you all sorts of shout outs for that. I'm also on Facebook. I do run, or I started the Arkansas chapter of the Dungeon Crawler Carl fan book club. We had an impromptu meeting about a month ago. We had 15 people show up, which is great because it was like a last second thing. I have our first official meeting where we talk about book 1 coming April 11th.
Nice. Awesome.
It's called
Very cool.
Secret Secret Nook Coffee and Books in Conway, Arkansas. It's a great place.
Nice. Cool. Awesome.
It's a really cool atmosphere. This last weekend they did a 3D printed Dungeon Crawler Carl miniature painting session where they had. So I went and I gave out a couple of. I got some little golden tickets, so we had little door prizes and gave away a Dungeon Crawler Carl puzzle. Those are pretty cool. I think those are Barnes and Noble things. And I had a Princess Donut pillow that I was going to take to Little RPG Con. Then I was like, how am I going to get that there? Because it's like a pillow. It's big. I have to get little things to take with me.
Yes,
so I'm trying to cook on all cylinders when it comes to being present. I'm on Discord, but I think my name is Crit Happens on Discord, and then on Reddit I'm something like Potential Engineer 5220. I don't one of those things that they assign me and I don't ever remember, and it's confusing to me because people have different names on TikTok, different names on Discord, different names on Reddit, and I'll run into somebody and they'll talk to me like they know me. I'm like, I don't know who you are, and they're like, oh, I'm Rogue Gopher. And I was like, oh, I know who you are. And the Joker. And I can't keep track. I'm old. I can't keep track. The only thing I know for any certainty is Pop Pop, because he's everywhere. Much shout out to him.
He is that man.
He's currently in bed right now because he had a long flight today and he had to get his nappy times in, which I completely understand.
He would. But there's nothing wrong with that.
But he's kind of the face. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. As much as I want to continue chatting, it's going to be TikTok kicking me off at the hour point. So
gotcha.
Thank you for this chat. Thank you for this interview. This has been wonderful. I so look forward to seeing you at Lit RPG Con. This has been Wilkie's World Wanderings with his Crit Happens.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. It was like you and I have known each other for years and years and years. It was wonderful. Thank you.
It's true. Like, this is
namaste.
Anyways, thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye. We all good?
Almost. There it is.
That was awesome, dude. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You made it very easy.
Oh, it's no problem.
I was a little nervous.
Thing is, like, it takes time, but I mean, we do the best we can. I gotta hit the stop button, but